Hey Joe, I'm gonna steal one of your ideas from a video you did about a week ago. If it's okay, I hope it's okay. If not, I apologize. But wanted to do just my take on one of your videos. So, and everyone else out in the VC, hello. This is my second video today. Thought I'd make another one. I just did a few minutes ago a review of George Harrison's Cloud 9 album. It's already posted. So I'm reviewing all the solo Beatle albums in order of release. So if you're a solo Beatle fan, you might want to check that out, see what you think. But week or so ago, Joe did his it's an odd number. I think it's like his top 13 or 14 favorite Bruce Springsteen favorite Bruce Springsteen songs, which kind of surprised me because Joe has several times said that he's not a huge Springsteen fan, but I guess he does like a handful of his songs all the same. So I think I'm a little bit more of a fan than Joe is. So I came up with my top 30 songs, and could have done more, but I figured 30 was a more than enough and a nice cutoff spot. So if you're a Springsteen fan and if one of your favorites isn't listed, doesn't necessarily mean I don't like it. It just might have been song number 32 or 40 or whatever. So my Springsteen story, my first album I bought was Born to Run. No huge surprise there, but I bought it, I want to say probably 19 late 78, early 79. I knew who he was before that. Remember he was already big at that point, and before then I think he was bigger in other parts of the country like the East Coast and the West Coast, maybe Chicago area, things like that, than he was in Fort Worth, Texas back in the mid and late 70s. But I remember hearing Born to Run on the radio somewhat often. 10th Avenue Freeze Out a little less often. And oddly enough, Rosalita got good amount of airplay back in the mid to late 70s on the radio here. And so, and most people around here were sort of knew who he was and knew a couple of his songs, Born to Run and Rosalita, but he wasn't gigantic huge in the area where I grew up, at least not yet. That would change, of course, when Born in the USA album came out, but we'll get to that. So, I was a big fan when I was younger, and I bought Born to Run, quickly followed by Darkness on the Edge of Town, which was probably my favorite album of his. After that, which had just come out like the summer before, I think, had been out for a while when I bought it. And The River New, and then the rest of his albums new up to a point. Nebraska, River, Born in the USA, etc. And at some point I stopped. But funny thing about Springsteen is that I liked him a lot then. I still like him a lot, but I really can't remember the last time I pulled a Springsteen album or CD out and played it. And I know it's been years, but not that I don't like him. I just haven't been in the mood in a long, long time. And it's kind of funny how that works because a lot of bands I loved back then, Beatles, Kinks, Jam, Clash, whatever, I played them all the time then, and I still play them all the time now. But then a lot of bands that I loved back then, like Springsteen, and I guess Sex Pistols would be another one that I just still like them, just haven't been in the mood to play them in forever. So, maybe somewhere down the road I'll be in the mood to listen to them again. We'll see. But I still like him, and so I narrowed this down to 30 songs, like I said. I liked your list, Joe, for the most part. A couple of songs that you had on there that I really never liked is My Hometown and Glory Days. Those were a couple of kind of pretty pedestrian songs, in my opinion. But the rest of the list is good, and I did disagree with y'all in a big way on one song, and we'll get to that because it's on my list. But yeah, and Springsteen, like I said, I liked all of his albums up through a lot of people, especially the hardcore Springsteen fans, because he was not known around where I grew up, but not huge. And then, of course, Born in the USA, and he went megawatt, stratospheric, famous, and he was up there for at least a year or two in the same pantheon of Madonna, Prince, and Michael Jackson, and hottest ticket in town. That all kind of faded away by the end of the '80s, and I don't imagine that most high school and college kids have any or too much interest in Bruce Springsteen nowadays like they did back in the 80s, but there it is. A lot of people thought of Born in the USA as sort of his sellout album to have a commercial hit, even though he'd already had commercial hits with The River and Born in the USA, or Born to Run. But there might be some truth to that, but I always liked that album, mainly just because '84 was a lot of personal memories tied up. It was such a great year in that summer, and just thinking back in my time where I was at life in that point, and just a lot of great fun things going on. So I got a lot of good memories of that album. I liked it then, I like it now. But then the follow up, well, they did have that 5 album live set, but then Tunnel of Love was the follow up album to that, which there is a song off of that on my list, but I thought that album was okay, but just okay. And then after that, I think his sound kind of changed, and I still bought the albums for a while. Eventually, I stopped, but he just, to my ears, just became different, kind of just dad rock music at that point. And there's still some good songs here and there on the different albums, but overall, those albums, I kind of lost interest to the point where I finally just stopped buying them. And then later on, I bought some of the later ones even after that, just out of curiosity, and didn't find them that thrilling. So Springsteen was kind of lumped in a lot of times with that subgenre of music that was around in the 80s called Heartland rock, that was sort of John Cougar Mellencamp, Don Henley, Bryan Adams, or Ryan Adams, not Brian, Tom Petty, and all that. I guess he kind of fits in there, but he's a little better than that, because those people, to me, that kind of music was all pretty damn boring, and I never had any interest in it. Uh, John Cougar, I guess, had a few good songs, but all by and large, I always thought Springsteen was a better writer, much better performer. He does a great show. I've seen him in concert a couple of times. It's still worth going to see in concert, even though I don't think he's really made a too much music wise and years worth listening to. But I always thought he was a better performer. He is kind of a 1 or 2 note performer. He doesn't have the range and the musical palette of, the Beatles or the Rolling Stones or a lot of other bands. But what he does with those 1 or 2 notes, he does it really well. And he's a great lyricist, a great storyteller in his day. And so there's that. So let's get to the list, 30 songs, and I'm going to start with 30 and go up to number 1. And unlike Joe, I don't have the fancy graphics to list the song on the screen. Probably need to play with this thing and figure out how to do that someday, but haven't yet because I'm too lazy. So number 30, and this is one of the rare exception of one of his later album songs. This is from the album Magic, Girls in Their Summer Clothes. That was, I remember hearing that. This came out 2000, I don't know, 2009, 2010, somewhere in there. And I actually went and bought the CD just off of hearing that song, because that was a really catchy, good song. Whereas so many of his songs, the 20 years or whatever before that, had just been pretty bland and boring to my ears. But I like Girls in the Summer Clothes. I don't like the way it's recorded. It's kind of really compressed and all. I wish it would have been recorded better. Still a good song. I bought the album Magic, and there is a couple other songs on there that I like, but the rest of the albums, yeah. So Girls in the Summer Clothes comes in at number 30. Number 29 is from the Seeger Sessions, which is the one exception of his latter day albums that I really did like. This was an album where he covered old Pete Seeger songs, and Old Man Tucker, the first song on the album, but the whole album is worth getting. It's just kind of a old folk, upbeat, I don't know, country bluegrass, really good, infectious album. Great album, worth getting, and the rare exception of anything past Born in the USA that's actually worth, where the whole album's pretty good. But Old Man Tucker at number 29. Number 28 is Tunnel of Love, title track off the album Tunnel of Love, which when I bought that album when it was new, I was not really impressed with the album overall, but I did love the title song, love the lyrics of ought to be easy, ought to be simple enough. Man meets woman and they fall in love, but this house is haunted, and the ride gets rough. And uh, true that, but a really good song, and I think the best song off of that album. So then we go to number 27, which is Wild Billy Circus, which is off his second album, The Wild, Innocent, and the East Street Shuffle. Fun, just another raucous, upbeat, fun song. We go to number 26, which is Dancing in the Dark off the Born in the USA album. I think that was the first single off that album. Um, I remember seeing that was the first thing I heard on the album. I think it was released before the album came out. I remember seeing that on MTV, and just good memories of the song. One of his best songs ever. No, he's done better, but it's got 80s production. It's dated, but it still affects me, and it just takes me back to the summer of '84. And that was just, like I said, it was just a really great time in my life. And even afterwards, I always liked that song. Number 25, I'm a Rocker, which is a song off the River album, which is just an upbeat rock and roll song. Number 24, I'm on Fire, which is on Dancing in or Born in the USA. And just sounds like a lonesome old country song, some kind of Hank Williams sounding type of thing, like he's sitting out on the back porch, uh, just singing a mournful song and a train going by in the distance. And is kind of atypical of the rest of the Born in the USA album, and a really good song, I'm on Fire. Number 23 is For You, which is on his first album, Greetings from Asbury Park. And I think that's the only song that I have from his first album, but his first album I actually like, and it's full of good songs. There's several of them that I could have put on this list because there's others I like, but For You, I think is the best song on the album. And I do agree with you, Joe, that the his version of Blinded by the Light is, he wrote it, so there's that. But I mean, I think the cover version by, was it Manfred Mann or whoever, probably better. But to be honest, I don't really like that song by him or them, so I was never that crazy by it anyway. But For You is number 23. Number 22 is Jungle Land. So from Born to Run album, great album, great song, great album. Number 21, The Ties That Bind. That's the I think that's the opening track of The River, and just a good another powerful, upbeat, infectious song. Number 20, Adam Raised a Cain, which is from Darkness on the Edge of Town album, which I think I already said is my favorite album of his. Number 19, Reason to Believe, which is off the Nebraska album, the stark, stripped down album that he released between The River and Born in the USA. Sort of an old, like old Johnny Cash murder ballad folk song, blues album almost. But yeah, Reason to Believe is off of that. Number 18 is the title track to his 1980 album. It's The River and the song The River. Number 17, We're Still in the River, and it's I Want to Marry You, which I always thought was a nice, sweet, just a nice song of a guy in love with a girl and wants to marry her and make a life with her. I always liked that song. Number 16, Born in the USA album again, it's No Surrender. Just a good rocker there. Number 15 is a fun song. It's off the River. It's You Can Look But You Better Not Touch. And I like the guitars in it. It sounds like the band's having fun, and it's just kind of a goofy, fun song. And let's see here, those You Can Look, You Can Never Not Touch at 15. Number 14 is On the River Again, is Crush on You. Ooh, ooh, I Got a Crush on You, which is another fun. It's kind of like a frat rock party rock and roll song off the River. Number 13 is from Darkness on the Edge of Town. It's Badlands. We Gotta Live Them Every Day. So like that song a lot. Number 12 is probably is other than maybe Born in the USA, probably his signature song, Born to Run, which is a great, in 1975, probably sounded really good, and it still sounds good today. Number 11 is Rosalita, one of his, another kind of just upbeat, almost frat rock sounding song, and tells a great story and how he's gonna wants to be famous and become a rock and roll star, and crashes his car when he gets his record money advance, and just a fun song. 10th Avenue Freeze Out from the Born to Run album is at number 10. Prove It All Night, number 9 from the Darkness on the Edge of Town, and The Promised Land, same thing. Sherry Darling from The River, another just fun, goofy, you know, tell your mama to move her big feet, fun song. Number 6 is Thunder Road, probably the best. Yeah, I would say that's the best song on Born to Run album, and Screen Door Slams and Mary's Dress Waves is just a poetry in motion song. It tells a nice story, and the music is really beautiful and powerful, and I love that song, Thunder Road. Out in the Street is number 5, which is from The River. Like it when at the end of the song, when they're singing out in the street, and Springsteen drops out on the vocal, and little Steven does the out in the street, and then he comes back in, and just a great energetic rock and roll song, Out on the Street. Number 4 is Candy's Room, which is on Darkness on the Edge of Town, and that'd be my favorite song on Darkness. Number 3 is Atlantic City, another Nebraska cut. Just a very powerful. The line, "Everything dies, baby, that's a fact. Maybe everything that dies someday comes back," has always hit me as a very thought-provoking and powerful line, and it's a wonderful song. And so there's that. Here's where we disagree, Joe. Number 2, and I know you said you hate this song. I love it. Number 2 for me, Santa Claus is Coming to Town. I think Santa Claus is Coming to Town, just the song, I don't remember by who, was the first, and I'm talking when I was probably like 3 or something in preschool. The first song that I actually like tuned in and said, hey, this music stuff's all right, and I've loved that song ever since, no matter who sings it. I love Sinatra singing it. I love the old versions. I love the Jackson 5's version. Pretty hard to mess that song up. I've always loved Christmas music, and I've always loved that song. Springsteen's version, which was the 75 concert that comes from, is just so infectious and joyful, and just blow out, have a Christmas party, rock and roll fun. It perfectly marries rock and roll and Christmas carols, and it's just, to me, it's just this big bolstering, just cinematic, scream and yell and have a lot of fun, and I always love it. It's never Christmas without hearing that song. And you're not alone, Joe. I've heard other people say that they don't like it much, but I've always just thought it's just probably one of my favorite Christmas songs. It's up there with Father Christmas and Happy Christmas War is Over and the Beatles' Christmas album Messages, and then but yeah, I love it. So it's number 2. And number 1, for a lot of personal reason I won't go into, but I think it's the best song on Born. It's definitely my favorite song on Born in the USA, is Bobby Jean, and just a kind of song about love and lost love and moving on and never forgetting, and I could go on, but has a lot of meaning to me personally, but it's also just a great song, and it's my favorite song of his, Bobby Jean. So there's my top 30 Springsteen songs. I don't know how many. I don't see people talking about Bruce a whole lot here, so I don't know how well he's liked or not liked or ignored, but feel free to chime in with your favorites, and have fun, everybody.